And we're live. Welcome to episode 9 of the Read the Manga podcast with Corey and Zach. Today, we are going to be talking about the manga Oldboy. And yes, there is a manga. It's not just a weird Korean film from 2003 that was adapted into a fucking Josh Brolin film in 2013. There is an actual manga in Japanese with the same story, but different. And we're going to talk about it.
There's also a Hindi version that
Oh,
changes
yeah.
things that reading the synopsis, I was like, oh man, why couldn't this be the only version of this that I've seen?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Like I feel like most movies would be better if they just did the Bollywood remake first without even like doing the original.
I don't know. I haven't seen a lot out there, but
Yeah.
from what
Me
I have
neither
seen,
actually.
it's pretty badass. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean there's some weird shit. There's like the kind of stuff where it's like the dude shoots the bullet and then like the bullet swerves all over the place and fucking like hits the guy like after it goes I don't know. It's like it's really just out there not even trying to be realistic stuff and there's always a musical. Dude, I feel like if they did like a full on like epic JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series, like I would want it to be made in India. Like
Yeah,
a Bollywood JoJo's, I feel like they have the same energy. But we're talking
I
about Old Boy,
yeah, I was gonna say
not
I'm
not our
sorry,
not
I'm
our Old
sorry.
Boy
I got a
Joseph.
little lost in thought because I was kind of thinking about this concept I had earlier where I was like, whoever is in charge of just making Josh Brolin ruin Elizabeth Olsen's life is just a dickhead. Like, oh
I
my
know
God. Like
the
I'm sitting there, I'm
the
like, Nick Fury is the one who locked away Thanos, and now Scarlet Witch is patching him up. Oh,
they're all MCU. I didn't even realize that. That's fucking great. And it's like the premise becomes so much more messed up when you know who the actors are.
what's so stupid?
What?
In my opinion, is stupid is the fact that reading the manga in Japan,
Oh, spoilers by the way.
it's like, all right, I got locked away for 10 years. Why would somebody do that? And then it's like, I listened to Smooth Jazz reading it because it was like, oh my God, this is just wordy. And it's just like,
Mm.
but don't you remember your past? I'm like, oh God, this is like middle-aged man Memento, except he has to remember some dickhead incident he did when he was in elementary school that triggered this like billionaire millionaire to like hound him down later. It's a very odd concept. Like the manga itself is like just weird. But then I'm like, huh, I've seen the movie first, then I read the manga,
Hmm.
and I sat there. I was like, huh. At no point at all in the manga does it ever involve the fact that he like banged his own kid.
No, that was the manga was very tame in comparison. I was surprised by that.
I was
I'm
gonna
like, okay,
say like,
there's
yeah, very tame is the best way to put it. I was like, wow,
yeah,
this is actually really tame kind of NPR. Like
yeah,
it's more figuring out your past and realizing like I don't know. In my opinion, it just seems like kind of like classist torture porn at the end of the day. Like
yeah.
every iteration of it, it's like just be careful you don't piss off the wrong kid because he might become a billionaire and lock you in a room for okay, one point I want to make. Manga, he's locked in there for 10 years.
Hmm.
Korean adaptation, 15 years.
Hmm.
American adaptation, 20 years. Bollywood adaptation, 14 years. This
That's a
motherfucker had
weird
more
number.
time added. Every adaptation, just like Uncle Ben dies every Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Every adaptation, this motherfucker gets like 5 more years added to his sentence. Like by the time this concept is adapted like 14 times over, like I don't know, like do the math, like exponent that out. Like he'll be dead before he even gets out. Like
The real the fucking the next version of Old Boy is just going to be Futurama. It's like locked up in 1999, gets out in the year 3000.
yeah, yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean
But yeah,
that's the
so
thing though, is like the whole like weird incest crap wasn't added until the Korean adaptation, which is a loose adaptation. That's why this time around I've seen the Korean one enough times to where I was like trying to find it to watch it, and it
Yeah.
became difficult. I even got
Yeah,
VPN
it's
to watch
fucking
it.
it's nowhere.
Yeah, I got
It's
VPN
nowhere.
to
They
watch
don't have it
it in
anywhere.
South Korea Netflix,
Oh,
and it
really?
worked, but the subtitles were in Korean.
But I
So
mean,
I,
it's such a visual movie.
yeah, honestly, I was like, well, I know the plot. I'll just watch it. I mean, so
Yeah.
I decided to watch the Spike Lee remake with
Yeah.
Mr.
Was
Josh
this the
Brolin.
first time you saw the remake?
Yes. And I'll tell you this,
Okay.
they ruined the hallway fight, which wasn't even in the
Okay.
manga. That was the Korean adaptation,
Yeah.
the hallway fight. Actually, like you said, very tame. When he goes, like, here's the thing, in the Korean adaptation and the American adaptation, there's a severe lack of firearms. But in the actual Japanese manga, the source material,
Yeah.
guns are brought up
They all
like
got
a
guns.
decent amount. Like the
Yeah,
only time
like
I
like you said in that text message, like Josh Brolin would have been dusted after he killed the second guy, like in the American version.
yeah, so
Like the Korean version works so well just because we hadn't seen something like that before that it kind of was just this like incredible stunt of fucking of a fight scene that was filmed in such a creative way, and it progressed the story. It made sense that he would have to fight his way out of there unarmed. In the American remake, having that fight scene in there doesn't really make any sense for the story.
so
It's like
like
it was just in there to pay homage to the original.
it didn't do it any credit that's like you have like 6 or 7 thugs in one scene with Samuel L. Jackson and they point and then it just full on cuts to a side shot of Josh Brolin with a rubber hammer going and it just has like a guitar chord like ding and you're it's just like you guys have been waiting for the hallway fight, here it is, and you're just like
Yeah.
who are all these random like they look like 80s thugs like he
Uh,
pulled him out of an 80s movie like dude with like a skull t-shirt looking like a punk rocker and Josh Brolin's just like I'm gonna give you the fisticuffs with this hammer get out like I don't
yeah.
know like for a movie where it shows like a dude like straight on hammer a dude in the head and then the whole way fights like the one of the like he walks away with the hammer it doesn't even look like it's touched a person it looks completely clean like I'm like come on
Yeah.
like this is an
It's a
important
fucking
scene
prop.
this is like if you're aware like for one like this is like taking it's like when you take a video and you convert it and it gets more blurry and then you convert it and it gets more blurry but it's like
Yeah.
you know once it goes over so many boundaries and has different subtitles over it, a lot of stuff gets lost like yeah the hallway fight like I'm pretty sure I saw a dude with like what looked like a light bulb like those tube light bulbs hit him
Mhm.
and I'm like oh that's for like I guess dramatic effect or something
Because they want something to shatter and go. Psh.
but
Yeah, it just
also
looks cool.
like
Like that's the whole thing. But that's the kind of the problem. Like, okay, so I'm gonna say this. I actually do like Spike Lee's version for certain reasons, but the kind of
good.
the main problem with it was that like it was trying to do like a more realistic noirish setting that was a little bit more true to the manga in just at least an execution, whereas like you can't really have the excesses of the fucking South Korean version while trying to do a more realistic take on it. It doesn't really work. Like they're two very different visions of this material, and Spike Lee's movie is almost held back by its homages to the original. Like the Korean film is supposed to be this fucking Shakespearean tragedy. It's like Odai the actor who plays Odai I can't remember his name. He plays it like he's playing fucking Macbeth. Whereas like this one's supposed to be more of like almost more of like in the vein of like American crime dramas, like kind of more stylistically similar to the Japanese manga in that way, because the Japanese manga is incredibly noirish.
Oh, oh. I mean, I kind of yeah. That was kind of the funny thing was like while I was watching the movie, I was noticing like oh wow, that's something that's in the manga, but not in the Korean
Yeah.
version. That's interesting.
Hmm.
Huh? And so it made me think like maybe he read it and also watched the original and made it.
Yeah, and he kind of smoked a joint with Sam Jackson, and they kind of combined into one. Like I'm assuming that's how the movie went.
You booger eating, piss drinking motherfucker. Oh no!
But like
If you stop now, you may be able to leave this building alive.
Jackson,
up. Like
Uh,
I don't know. It was I'm a sucker for Josh Brolin. So watching this, like I don't know, the shock face when the big reveal of like
like, okay, this is my
little.
question for you. Did you think his performance was good?
Oh, I liked it. I mean, he
So
was.
you bought him as the character.
Oh yeah. I mean, like the character's like what a dude who's like grizzled and pissed off that he's been in solitary confinement for 10 years and had nothing to eat but like the same shit every day and doesn't know why. Like I mean, like it's honestly, I feel like the adaptations of the manga just boiled down like what was it, 80 chapters
Yeah,
into like 2 hours, which
because
like
there's not a
they
whole lot of
cut out a
story
lot of
there.
stuff. And I mean,
Yeah,
like in the manga, it's like I'm a hypnotist lady, and there's like all these side plots and things going on, and ultimately just all goes to the middle where it's like, oh well, you cried while I sang a song, and that made me feel bad. Did you
I know.
pity
Like,
me?
okay, so like, what did you make of the ending of the manga? Because like, I couldn't fucking make heads or tails of it.
Cool with
I'm
it.
still kind of sitting there
I was
like,
cool with it.
why was he pissed though? Like, that's what I didn't understand.
I think that's a weird thing. It's like you read that manga, and you're like,
Hmm.
no, the ante is not high enough. We need to
Hmm.
have incest,
Yeah.
double incest, and murder. Let's do it.
Yeah, because like it's so tame. There's even a line in the manga where the main character says straight up, "I want revenge, but I'm not going to go crazy with it." Like it's like, dude, like, do we really want that in our fucking protagonist who's been locked up for 10 years? Like, wouldn't we be more sympathetic if he was hell bent on murdering this guy at any cost? Isn't that more of a compelling story rather than just like, yeah, like I'm kind of pissed off, but I'm also just happy to have my freedom. So like, if I get him, cool. If I don't, whatever. Like that's not
Look at what
that
I
doesn't
pointed
really
out,
make for a
though.
compelling narrative.
Being locked in a room in Japan for 10 years, you get the manga protagonist. You lock a guy away
Yeah.
in Korea in a room for 15 years, you get that guy. You lock Josh Brolin in a room for 20 years, you get that guy. Eventually, like, the Russian guy will be locked in there for like 60 years and come out like looking like, I don't know, like super jacked and able to blow people up with his mind.
I can't wait for the Russian version.
Yeah, I don't know. But I mean, essentially, what I got from every iteration of it is the concept of vengeance, and you know, like the manga, the vengeance. You know, we could argue whether it really was justified or not. A lot of people were like, "I just read this, and
But like I don't understand what the motivation was.
yeah."
Like I didn't get it.
So like you're like, "Oh, they're making a film adaptation that says it's gonna clarify the motivation." You're like, "Excellent," and then you watch it, and you're like,
You just added a bunch of incest. Like that's all the motivation was. It's like
"My
you
daughter younger than my wife." Yeah, I don't know, like and
fuck.
what's crazy
Okay.
is that they don't even touch upon the room stuff in the manga. It's just like you get to it, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, I've been locked away for 10 years. I wonder why. Let's let's go on an adventure. Whereas like
So
the
and
movie, it shows him
that's
like sitting there like freaking out and shows how solitary confinement can just break somebody.
but that's why the adaptations are so interesting because you I was reading the manga and I'm like, this author is missing every interesting part of this story. Like it's like any like all of the compelling shit that you want to explore with this premise, the author's kind of sidestepping it and doing something different. Whereas like with both movie adaptations, they straight up are like, okay, the two main things of this movie, the mystery of why the fuck you would lock somebody up for this long and why you would let them out. We want to figure that out and figure out what would like drive somebody to do that, and the psychological effects of what would happen if you're fucking locked up for that long. And the manga doesn't really explore either of those.
It's like Cartman, like making Scott Tenorman eat his parents is like way more brutal than like the manga. And like even to like is a weird
Oh
motivation
yeah,
for
the South
revenge.
Park manga.
Yeah, like I don't know,
No, I'm just
like you're just like if we're gonna look at like revenge out of normal people on a basis, like it's just like
well,
you got manga. Like okay, so like here's the
Scott
thing.
Tenorman, he sold Cartman's own pubes to him. I'd be pissed too.
That's you know that's just capitalism though apparently. But
Yeah.
my thing. My thing that's crazy is like it's part of the Vengeance trilogy by what was his name?
Park Chan Wook,
Park Chan Wook.
not Bong
Yeah.
Joon-ho,
No, not.
but
But yeah,
yeah,
it's part of his Vengeance trilogy, which is interesting because it's a director using an adaptation as part of a trilogy of films that they're doing,
yeah,
which you don't see like often. So it's like
yeah,
I guess he saw the vision, like you said, all the missed opportunity in Old Boy. He was like, I could add things to this.
yeah.
What if he like did something that stepped the boundaries? Like I don't know. What I find crazy is that like I said, it's like they add the incest stuff, and I'm like, okay. Like I watched this movie and I read the manga. I was like, so that was added? Okay. And then I watch the American adaptation, and it's like they start changing a bunch of things and they Americanize it.
Yeah.
And it's like all of a sudden it's like, whoa, Scarlet Witch is like a paramedic. That's probably the chick he's gonna bang. And they go like the whole movie, and you're like, oh, cool. Like, nice job, Spike Lee. You changed it in like a different direction. And then she's just like, I'm in a towel. Let's change your bandages. And I was like, oh,
No,
mother,
yep.
really? You're gonna hold
Breaking
on to
out,
that? Same with
breaking
like
out them Olsen twins.
same with the fact that it's like they have the whole like hallucination scene in the Korean one where the flies come out of his mouth, and then they don't
Yeah.
they don't keep that, but they change it to like the one bellhop like black guy sitting on the bed
Yeah,
for the
the
hallucination, and I
hallucination
like I
scenes in
like
the
the
Korean one
hallucination.
are some of the best scenes. Like I'm kind of mad that like they're not in the manga or in the like American remake. Like I loved the fucking hallucination scenes in Old Boy.
Yeah, and I mean I like the ones that Spike. I like the fact that Spike Lee
The
kept
the
that.
this shit coming out of his fucking arm and stuff.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
and Josh Brolin, like I'm a sucker for his performances, so he really held my interest for it.
See, I liked him better when he was because we've seen him play the fucking angry, grizzled, revenge-seeking guy before. I liked him when he was playing like the fucking like Adam Scott and Step Brothers, just like being a complete fucking douche nozzle and being a drunk and just like getting on everybody's nerves. Like I enjoyed the shit out of that.
Yeah, like I
Like
don't
yeah,
know, like his performance in this one, like I think my I don't know, it's a testament to Josh Brolin's acting because like I remember when you get the epiphany scene, like oh lo and behold, look at the footage, and then he's like,
yeah. He made the Kubrick face, that
like
fucking Danny Torrance in The Shining.
like he can't even get words across. He's just so freaking aggravated.
But
Or
at that point, it was like so like overacted and so fucking ridiculous that I was just kind of like, I was like, this is the energy that this film needed the entire time. It needed to not take itself so seriously and be this like ridiculous fucking romp. And like, I didn't really like connect with the Spike Lee version until that last scene where I'm like, okay, so like finally there's some fucking cheese here. Like that's what was missing. Like the movie was taking itself entirely too seriously. It's like we know it's a fucking remake of Old Boy. We know it's never going to touch the original. We know it's not going to be that good. And like just
exactly, we
the
for like you're strapping into Old Boy. Like why is it called Old Boy? Who knows? But you know what's gonna happen? Oh, you don't? Well, then I'm an asshole for showing you this. I should know better. Here we go.
hmm,
I don't know.
why is it called Old Boy?
I don't know. I mean, it's
I mean,
old
because
space boy, like separate words in the manga, and then they like smush them together for the Korean and the Japanese one.
is it because he's a man that was physically aged but was never able to mature properly because he was locked up? So he's an old boy. That'd be my guess.
Older than my daughter, younger than my wife. I don't know. I think the high like you want to make an old boy like
uh,
you take just the mere concept of Old Boy and you just slap it and you're like you could fit like 80 years of putting a guy in like a private prison in this motherfucker and smack it like
why am I not dead yet?
because I wanted you to enjoy this moment. Let's watch Old Boy. No.
Okay, so Charlton Copley, who played the villain in the remake, he was hamming it up. I liked that. And I feel like the villain was so subdued in the fucking Korean version that I loved that like the villain in this one was just chewing the scenery. Like he knew what movie he was in.
The back
Him and
and
Samuel L.
like
Jackson.
freaking the manga just looked like Angel Densetsu, but with a big nose. Like if you took him and Richard Nixon, just it was just like
Uh,
you cried at my song, and I have a big nose and was awkward, and you should understand what happened.
dude, we have to do Angel Detsetsu. I forgot about that manga.
Yeah,
That
it's a
one's
good
really
series.
good. What did you think of like stylistically the manga compared to the Korean version compared to the movie version? Just like as far as like how they visually presented the information.
I like Lance Reddick.
Wait, was
He
Lance
was in
Reddick
the
in the
beginning
remake?
of the remake.
Who did he play?
Can take you disrespecting me. I'm an adult, but when you disrespect the woman I love, and then he just smacks him in the face.
Oh shit, that was Lance Reddick?
Like a red herring, like because you're like, oh, dude, he's totally that weird guy who's gonna lock him in the room for 10 years, and then he Google's him, and he's just like, nah, he died in an airplane, like he died in a mid-air airplane crash, like 8 years before he got out. So he's
Ah,
like, his buddy was like, oh no, there's no way.
God. Do you think that they just cast him because they couldn't get LeVar Burton?
I watched uh, I watched a LeVar Burton movie. That was pretty weird.
Which one?
Uh, what was the name of it? I'd have to look it up. I'll text you it later. It was really weird though, but I was like, oh man, LeVar Burton made that.
Was it the slave one or the visor one or like
Oh, he directed this.
okay.
Yeah.
Was it like a feature film version of Reading Rainbow?
No,
Because those are the three
it was
things
like
that
a
I know that
really
LeVar Burton was
weird
in.
like one shot VHS thing. There's this guy on
Was it like
YouTube,
for kids or for adults?
kids. It was like really
Interesting.
weird, really weird. Like you gotta check him out. Like this dude Brutal Moose, he does like his editing is on point. Like they Adult Swim needs to give that guy a show. Like if they're gonna do like the was it what's his name? Pina talks you to sleep. Like they need
Oh, Joe Pina or whatever, or
if
Joe
they give
Pina or Parrot Joe Parrot
Joe
Joe Parrot,
Para.
I think.
Yeah.
Joe Parrot talks
If
you to sleep.
if
Yeah.
they have that, then they should give Brutal Moose a show on Adult Swim because the dude's editing. I'm like, oh my god, this guy is like nothing but Adult Swim. But like, yeah, like he goes out and he finds VHS tapes and then like he watches
Uh-huh.
them and like he'll look
Yeah.
for blank tapes and one of them was like Dream Bunny. It's super weird. I don't know, but I don't know. Like, yeah, LeVar Burton. Back
Nice.
to
He's
Lance
an
Reddick.
interesting cat.
If only LeVar Burton directed Oldboy, then maybe it could have been more like the Hindi version. Like, you upset me, so I put you in timeout for 10 years. But your daughter, I fully paid for a full ride to go to a prestigious university. Like, she's doing
If
great. I paid off all your debt. I just need you to eat that dog turd over there, and we'll be squaresy for making fun of me in high school. And Josh Brolin would be like,
yeah, if LeVar Burton could take Old Boy and turn it into like a children's parable aimed at preschoolers, but like keep the same basic plot structure, that would be incredible.
I like how Lance Reddick's existence just leads into LeVar Burton getting shoehorned into whatever project. Like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
LeVar Burton has nothing to do with Old Boy, and we've spent the last 5 minutes talking about him.
Like, they're gonna make a sequel. Lance Rex could be like, "Why am I back here? My character died in the first one. I'm not even significant." He's like, "We brought you back to life using like some kind of crazy gypsy magic." I don't know by this point, but we're gonna make it
uh,
work. Dream
yeah,
Bunny.
I feel like I feel like the John Wick movies kind of did like American Old Boy better than like Spike Lee did. I mean, it wasn't the same premise, but like I feel like the John Wick films kind of have the energy that I would want from an American version of Oldboy. If it was going for like a high octane action thing of just that like hell bent revenge driven narrative, and I feel like Keanu Reeves, if you put him in an Oldboy adaptation, could like really sell it in just the perfectly pitched like hammy but like also kind of down to earth way that he does. Like that whole monologue that he has in John Wick, where he's like, "Are you gonna turn your son into me now? Or are you gonna die screaming alongside him?" Like, I don't know. I think he would play a good old boy.
I've read a lot of series that have the concept of revenge as like the driving factor.
Yeah.
And there's definitely like you have that going, and then you have the concept of like you have somebody who's essentially a nobody going against somebody who has like ultimately like godlike power in their world, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they're kind of in a game. It's like the manga is way more like narrative, like conversation driven, like mind game, memento kind of bullshit. Whereas like you get to the
Yeah.
Korean version where it's like, nah, dude, I learned MMA from watching TV. We're getting this done. Like, give me a hammer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna hammer time hallway. Let's go. And then you get to
Yeah.
Josh Brolin just being like, but it's
Well,
like,
the
like Berserk is a series that's fucked up and about revenge.
mhm.
But it's like the thing that makes it more like palatable is the fact that you know the revenge is like straight there in front. Even though
Yeah.
like Griffith is kind of very similar to like the villains in Oldboy, like ultimately having power, and Guts is like fighting against that guy who everybody's on his side other than him. He's the only one that really knows about what he did. But like the thing that's weird about Oldboy is like it subverts that and it makes the protagonist into the bad guy, and then it makes it into a thing where it's like, well, of course he deserved to be put into a room for 10 years and like suffer all this weird mental mind game crap and like
Well, yeah, the guy in the Korean version and in the fucking American version, they're more morality plays. Like the guy was a shithead and is reaping what he sows. In the fucking
even then like
In the
in
Japanese
the Josh
version,
Brolin
the
one, what did he do? All he did was like he was a drunk dickhead who told the school a
yeah.
rumor, and the guy like yeah, that's a dickhead move. I'm not supporting it, but I'm also saying like what he added to the universe was not like kidnapping someone for 10 years, weaponizing him, and then releasing him onto the world, in which like he crippled like five teenagers in his first 10 minutes being out of the box. Like,
Yeah, but
and like
but the whole
that
point.
dude created that. Then that dude also like every subsequent adaptation, they just keep upping the ante. Like it's like more
Yeah, they make
people
him more
dying,
violent.
get hurt, and they add more time on it. And I'm just like, look, like you could take anybody, lock them in a room for how many years? Eventually, some of them will come out like old boy. Like I don't know. I feel like it.
Yeah, but okay, so here's the point I want to make. So with the American and the Korean versions, their morality plays in the same way that like a slasher movie is a reality play, where it's like we killed the teenagers because they're fucking. Like if they hadn't transgressed, they wouldn't die. Whether you believe the transgression was enough to warrant their death, it's obviously not. But the whole point is that like it's a morality play in that way of like if you're living a sinful life, you're going to be fucking murdered. And Old Boy's kind of the same thing, where like this guy was leading a life where he was pissing everybody off, adding no value to the world, and just being all around a piece of shit human being, and he eventually has to answer for what he did.
Okay,
Whereas
okay,
the
okay,
Japanese,
okay. Here you
wait, wait,
go.
no, no, let me finish, let me finish.
Sure, all right.
So, but the Japanese version, what did he do to deserve being locked up? Like, was the guy wasn't really a bad dude. Like, he wasn't really adding anything negative. He was just going to be an average guy. Like, he wasn't making anybody's life worse. Like that's what I'm trying to understand of like what was the point of the manga? Like what were they trying to accomplish by creating this narrative? Like I didn't really feel like thematically it went anywhere. Like that
Yeah.
was kind of the thing with the manga that I was kind of concerned about, where it's like, okay, so the guy locks him up, and it turns out it was because it was this fucking thing that happened in music class that wasn't even a thing, and the guy had internalized it way too much. and like had just it was like his own psyche that had like blown this thing out of proportion and made him want to take revenge on this other guy, on Goto. But it's like the villains the villains motivations have to be justifiable, or at least like sympathetic to the audience from a certain point of view, and the manga just did not have that. The manga's core basis for the revenge he was taking on Goto made no sense. Like that's the thing that I'm trying to understand about like why even tell the story in the manga, you know?
The whole thing doesn't make sense. To be completely clear, no matter what you do in high school does not warrant an individual to imprison you against your own will. That is illegal. Like, if it was really that big of a deal to the guy, he could have gone to the authorities for whatever happened. But in the Korean version, he couldn't because, oh, weird incest. In the American version, it's, oh, the whole family is weird incest. So, like, you know, that's just misplaced, like, blame right there. Because, like,
Yeah.
somebody's a
But
dickhead,
like
yeah. But you know what? Like, he could have confronted him with, like, the whole like my whole view of Oldboy is like I said, it's just essentially torture porn for like wealthy people. Like let's no matter which version you read, even like if the bad guy kills himself at the end, technically, he still freaking was able to just torture a guy for however he felt and pleased because the guy wronged him in some way. I'm sorry, a lot of people get
yeah.
wronged very horribly in a lot of ways, but like he damn near ruined like a young woman's life out of revenge. Like, you
I
know,
know, Corey. So the point
so
that I was
so
trying to
what I'm
make
trying to say is
was
that
not that it was justified. It's
no,
not
I'm
that it
not
was
even saying the
justified.
justified stuff. What I'm trying to point out is the fact that you can't justify it, and it doesn't matter if you can or can't. Because the
Yeah,
fact of the matter is, the point of the movie is about somebody showing a display of force that is like so like unpreventable. Like from the moment the guy screwed over that dude, he was screwed, and that is like the thing that I'm getting at is like it's an unbelievable concept because it is an unbelievable concept, and it is like how often are you going to be like, man, I pissed off Bill Gates in high school and he got me shipped to like the Sahara Desert? Like that doesn't happen. But like in Old Boy's world, that happened to a guy. That's just my point. Is like I don't care who's reasoning for what. Like if anything, the manga is tame, and like upping the ante and the subsequent adaptations was like a way to make it more exciting and like up the stakes and all that. But like at the end of the day, like I'm just sitting there like my suspension of disbelief has gets way more stressed as it gets further from the original source. In
but
fact, the more
I'm not
boring source
talking
makes
about.
more sense for like
And
and I
but like
and that's just
here,
my point of
I
view
think.
on it. Like I felt like the more enjoyable experience for me was probably the Spike Lee one because it was new. But like I won't say that it made sense. Like there was a lot of stuff in it where I was like, you guys just were really going with the concept, and that's fine. But you know, there were
But
I don't know.
here's the thing though. Like I guess when you look at the Park Chan Wook version, and when you look at the Spike Lee version of that character and how he's portrayed earlier on, like it makes sense why somebody would want to do something like that to him, because they're pissing everybody off. They're just fucking assholes. They're not contributing anything to the world. It's not what they did in high school. It's like they're still like shitheads like later in life. Like we see that Josh Brolin is a fucking asshole that
That is
doesn't fucking like
law
take care
is
of his
for.
daughter.
That's
What?
what that's what the law and like just
But
public
Corey, that's not.
opinion. No.
But no,
Nobody
like
gets
you're
to take it
talking
upon
past my point.
themselves. Nobody gets to take it upon themselves to remove a factor just because they can afford to do it. That is I'm not agreeing with
But
that.
that's not the
I'm not agreeing
that's
with
not the
that.
conversation. That's not the conversation I'm trying to
But
have.
you're saying
I'm
that
saying
he was asking
I
for it, but it's like who
no,
knows
that's
when
not
they're
what I'm
being an
saying.
asshole? Like I feel like the movie's like trying to threaten people into like don't be mean to people or you might end up in a room for 10 years, you know.
I know, but that's not what I'm like.
Sorry,
It's
I
not
guess I'm not
saying.
grasping it. Can you?
I'm saying that like whatever you think of the law, or like whether how people should be punished, like based on how many people both the Josh Brolin version and the Korean version, how many people that character fucked with in his life, it makes sense that one of those people would eventually come out and want to fuck with him back. Whereas in the original manga, the guy doesn't really seem to have many enemies. It's just this one dude that he pissed off in middle school. Like that's the thing that I don't understand the point of the story, where it's like so an average guy is an asshole to one person once kind of, and it doesn't really know what he's doing, it doesn't really know that he's doing it, and then he all of this horrible shit happens to him. Whereas like in the Korean version and the English version, it makes a little bit more sense because of like the characters are portrayed as so shitty to begin with. Whereas like the manga version doesn't have that portrayal. Like it's just completely senseless.
In the
Like
Korean
that's what I
version,
don't.
the guy was like drunk because like I don't know, he was just being drunk at one night and got taken away, and it was made clear that when he was in school, he spread a lot of rumors about the guy and his sister banging, and it was true.
Yeah,
Like so,
they
I
make
don't think
the
I don't
initial
think
character
I don't
worse
think
in each adaptation.
that warrants you to be put in a room for 10 years, but I don't get to make that decision. I didn't have millions of whatever Korean money it cost to put a guy in a room for that long. That was that guy's decision. That's why when I went through reading it and watching it, I was just focusing on the villain to try and get into his mind as to like why he would do it. And the whole time it's
Mm-hmm.
like when you look at it from his perspective, knowing the whole plot, it is pointless. It's literally the guy just the story's about revenge, but you're just watching a mouse go through a maze while the real revenge is happening every single chapter. Even when you think there's a chapter of him preparing to do something to enact revenge, he's in the other guy's plot of revenge. It doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
and it's kind of the same with the adaptations, except I guess I don't know. It's just it's such a weird series because like reading it, I was just like, wow, the Korean adaptation came out of this. I could see where they like Venn diagram are similar, but then there are definite differences like with it,
Mm-hmm.
like the violence for
Yeah,
sure.
the violence is way more intense in the later ones.
But I don't know,
Yeah,
like I think the concept of it is funny because it's like, well, if you left the guy completely to his own devices for 10 years and all that, like yeah, that's crazy. I like the Spike Lee one and how it went about it because they emphasize like the whole like alcoholism part. So like when Josh Brolin decides to start pouring it down the drain and all that, and they make it clear like his drinking is like the main reason why he's not around his family and stuff. So like
hmm
it's kind of like symbolic in a certain way because you're like, well, if he didn't quit drinking, he wouldn't have anything to do with his family anyways. So it's kind of funny that now that he has no choice in the matter, it matters to him now. So
yeah,
it's like that's something I noticed with the Spike Lee iteration of it. And then it's like with the original iteration, you don't even really I like read it and I was confused. I was like, where's the being in the room part?
yeah.
There was like none.
And he was not very well accommodated in the manga. Like in the Korean version and in the fucking American version, like he's got a nice hotel room. In the manga, it's like just a little fucking like tiny room with a fucking TV. Like it's
He was sitting there
it
like
was kind of
shivering one night in a
yeah,
blanket.
I won't exactly like the fact that they don't focus on that. Like I said, the manga misses a lot of the most interesting parts of the story. It just doesn't focus on the stuff that would be most interesting about the premise. And that's what's so cool about Oldboy is that you can take it and like put it in pretty much any context and the premise is interesting. Just like the whole fucking concept of the dude being put in a room for so and so years and then released and he doesn't know who did it or why. That's inherently fascinating.
Wouldn't do it as a film. I would do it as like a small like 10 episode series. And
Yeah.
I would do a combination of what the live actions have done and the manga. Like follow the manga plot, but still carry the heaviness and grit of the live actions. Maybe make it a little bit more
Okay.
action packed, like add the hallway scene, you know. But it's like that's the thing though, is like Goto is completely different than what's the main character's name in the Korean one? They all have a different name.
Odaisu. Yeah,
Odaisu?
the Korean one, yeah, it's Odaisu.
Odaisu and Joe Doucette.
Joe Dusay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, they're all kind of different characters. Like, Joe Doucette is kind of like, all right, let's figure this out, blah blah blah. And then, like
Mm,
he kind of he kind of dives more headfirst into well, actually, like he plays more with like the mental games.
yeah.
Odasai like just kind of just was like speed run. Let's get through this. Find the guy. Done. Eat the dumplings. Oh yeah, by the way,
Eat an octopus.
I want a
The
dumpling so
octopus
bad
scene's fucking
today.
great. Really? Ah,
Yeah.
dude. After Doro hit Doro and now this, like just fucking gyoza and dumplings and like I just want some damn Chinese food.
They call them Chinese ravioli in the manga, which is funny.
I know what the hell was up with that because there's other stuff that's more obscure that they don't translate and they think we're gonna get confused by fucking dumplings. We've opened to a Chinese restaurant. Like what the hell?
So you're like, I don't know what that is. I'm gonna look it up. Oh, it's
Yeah.
the Chinese ravioli.
in order to translate this for Americans, we gotta like make up like a vague similarity to an Italian dish so that they know what the fuck we're talking about. Okay, so okay, I have a question for you.
All right.
We've seen the Japanese version, seen the Korean version, we've seen the American version. Which country would you like to see adapt the story next?
No one. I think it's done. I think it's fine as is. That's giving it too much credit even. Like honestly, watching the movie and reading the manga, I was sitting there, I was like, was he in the room for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years? And like,
Yeah.
does it matter? Like, why was he so surprised by the internet when his friend showed him the internet when he has a TV up until that point? He would know what the internet is because he watches TV.
Well, probably because he was only watching what the guy who was running the station let him see. So he might not have really been watching real TV.
That's terrible. See, see, like I feel like this is one of those examples of like, wow, zombies are interesting, but like it's the most of the
It's pinned
series that
on
have
to death.
zombies in it are kind of all right, and you're like, hey, don't dismiss them just yet. It's a concept that could be used really well, and I'm like, cool, all right, let's see. Oldboy, guy gets stuck in a room for 10 years. Go and like, Park Chan Wook's like eats dumplings, gets laid, regrets getting laid, cuts off tongue, done. And everybody's like, whoa. And he's like, yeah, I add
Yeah,
the whole older than my daughter, younger than my wife part. And then,
yeah.
Spike Lee's all like, I got that. Lance Reddick, Josh Brolin plus vodka, Josh Brolin minus
Sam
vodka,
Jackson.
Sam Jackson, Sam Jackson with blonde mohawk, Sam Jackson in red jacket, Sam Jackson in red jacket with money. Both versions, I love the part where the guy's about to kill the dude and they get a call and they're like, there's no way I'm going to let him leave alive. What? Oh, all right. Cool, you can
Wait,
go.
how much are you offering me?
Oh, you were very
That's great.
oh, you are extremely generous, sir. Like, and I love that because it's like the dude offered enough money to save his life.
Yeah.
Sam Jackson's like, cool. All right, we'll let him go. And before he could finish saying, we'll let him go, it's like the guy added on more money. Like, oh, you know what? For your troubles, I'll add more money. Oh, you're even more generous. Like, that's kind of what I got from that conversation was like the villain just like, I don't know, it's like a kill him with kindness kind of deal, except like the manga is even more of that. Like, I'm gonna drink with you at the pub. Are you
Okay.
here? You
So
were
okay, I want to answer the question that I asked you earlier because I actually have like a setup answer for this.
okay.
I really want to see like a south of the border version, like if you could do like a Mexican version directed by Alfonso Cuarón or something. Like I think that would be fucking cool. Alfonso Cuarón's the guy who did he did Children of Men, and he did Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
It's kind of weird, but I feel like Nicholas Winding Refn would do a great old boy.
That would be interesting, like a Danish version. Ryan Gosling, huh?
Yeah.
Huh? Dude,
Do do.
dude, if he completes his Gosling trilogy with an Old Boy remake, That would be fucking tight.
Boy old, because he looks young. Yeah, old boy. Yeah,
Yeah,
Ryan
you could.
Gosling. That's a way to describe Ryan Gosling.
Yeah, he's an old boy. But you could do that because like he could play 25 and he could play 45. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
fucking let's do it. Right, we'll write Hollywood a nice letter because Nicholas Winding Refn, he hasn't done anything since Neon Demon. Like, where's this guy been? And Neon Demon fucking slapped. I love that movie.
Because Neon Demon was like a really. If you're listening, Nicholas Winding Refn, I like your movies, but Neon
Me
Demon was
too.
just like Old Boy. You're like, huh, that was good, but I feel horrible after watching it.
Yeah.
Still good though,
Remember Only God Forgives?
of course. I actually saw they
Uh,
added that to Hulu and got really excited.
oh god, that's one of those movies where like all of the buildup was terrible, but that last fight scene at the end I fucking loved, and I still watch that fight scene all of the time. But like, I will not watch that movie again.
It's Ryan Gosling holding his arms out.
I respect it though. It's like
Okay,
it's like
okay,
Max Hall
maybe
Howard
Wes
Cater
Anderson
levels.
doing the South of the Border version with like claymation or puppets, like Fantastic Mr. Fox style. I'd watch that version of Old Boy.
Yeah, the really like perverse part of me wants to see that. Like that sounds fucking weird.
Or like
And
puppets.
like and Anderson's been getting darker, which I like. Like he's been getting a little bit more like not necessarily violent, but he's like been exploring more of the darker parts of human nature in his later films, which I think yeah, I think an old boy adaptation is exactly what he needs to do right now.
I think that should just be what everybody just falls back on doing every 10 or so years or 5 or 6.
Yeah. It's kind of like how every every Japanese director kind of has like their version of like the samurai film that they do, or like every American director has their version of the Western. We just need like, and every like big
Like
name director
Office.
just needs to do a version of Old Boy at some point.
Like they have the Office in every country. Yeah, like every country
Yeah,
has their Old Boy.
yeah,
Progressively, the guy will be locked away for like 2,000 years. Um,
dude. If you did a version of Old Boy, but the entire thing was just an elaborate fucking prank between Jim and Dwight.
what are you talking about, Dwight?
uh,
That's not your girlfriend. That's your daughter. That's for putting my stapler in the jello. Which is essentially
uh,
like, just so everybody
uh,
knows, if you are afraid of like cutting in line in front of a billionaire and them going, I'm gonna have you disappeared, and then you're
yeah,
gonna end up committing like, I don't know, like homicide and incest, then don't watch this or read it because that'll just evoke more of that fear. Just always stay in line and don't cut in front of billionaires or just don't
yeah,
be a dick. I guess that's the safest option. You never know when somebody will just be like, you know, Seinfeld,
yeah.
and then you're gone. It's like, bye, Zach. What happened? Oh well, I bumped into Jerry Seinfeld and spilled mustard on his sweater. I'm like, well, that doesn't warrant you getting disappeared. And you're like, yeah, well, it was in his closet. I'm like,
I
oh.
had to watch nothing but B movie for 25 years.
I would watch that. I would watch that. If it was like, if they made a parody movie of Old Boy where somebody spited Jerry Seinfeld and he made them sit and watch B movie for 25 years and they trained to fight like a bee to confront him. And he's just like, I'm just going to drop you off on an island and go away. I have that kind of money. I'm out. This is boring.
Dude, your Jerry Seinfeld impression sounds like Morty if he was a chain smoker.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. Chain smoking Morty.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
like slightly lower pitched Morty.
I
Anyway,
left my lighter inside.
I don't think we have anything else relevant to say on Old Boy.
It's one of
It's been a
those series
solid
where it's more of an experience. Like you roll through it and you're just like, wow, I read that. Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like watching. I don't know. It reminds me like I wonder why they didn't do more adaptations of weird like mangas and animes and stuff into like Arnold Schwarzenegger movies because like there's a lot of weird like Oldboy getting that much attention is funny. I'm like, damn it, why didn't they do Biomeat with like Arnold Schwarzenegger? That would be great. That's something I see him
Uh,
doing. We need to eat it before it eats us.
do you ever want to do biomeat on this podcast, or do you think anybody would listen to that?
I think everybody would. Honestly, I would totally read Biobeat right now as like a palate cleanser, just because I'm like, I need to see
A
weird
palate
bug
cleanser.
things eat things and people because
Uh,
like I just read and watched some guy be like, you pissed me off once, so I made you bang your kid.
na 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 na. Made you bang your daughter.
And in both versions, he's just like, just kill me, and he's just like, nah, and I'm just
Yep.
like, all right.
Uh,
But it is
so
it's a concept of revenge, like like these two dudes caused a chain reaction that affected way more people than it should have. Like,
yeah,
that's where I feel like there are a lot of like there's a lot of collateral damage, and that's what I look at in the movie. Like even Samuel Jackson's crew, which
yeah.
is like we don't do this like for crazy people. Like we do this for people that are dodging taxes and like laying low from getting killed by the mafia. Like we were not expecting some dude to show up and murder us because we fed him dumplings for 20 years straight. Like like they
Yeah.
weren't evil, but they weren't good. They made it a point like we don't kill people. They killed
They're just in
Marco.
business.
How dare you?
It was just like, Marco, get him. Oh wait, he killed Marco. That was good. Like that, I needed more of that from the Spike Lee version.
They just need to
Anyway,
stop.
so
They just need to stop letting Josh Brolin. Like if Elizabeth Olsen sees that Josh Brolin's gonna be on the set, she's gonna be like, "Oh God, what are you gonna do to my character? What's
uh,
happening?"
yeah. Anyway, so episode 10, I kind of ran this idea for through you before of doing like a little manga awards thing, and I think it would be a good idea to kind of like list all of the different categories and kind of give our picks for like best shonen, best seinen, best fucking fight scene, best like I don't know, like do something like that, so like the people can kind of get like a sense of like our manga tastes and like where we are and what we value in manga. Like I feel like that would kind of be
Dongs hung.
top 10 dongs hung.
Yeah,
I feel like dong hung is probably a character in a manga.
maybe.
No, that would be a Chinese manga, right? Because that's yeah, that's like the Chinese naming scheme, right, with the two syllables.
Because he had manhwa and then
um,
manhua or something like that.
Manhua is the Chinese one, right? Anyway,
We'll
but yeah,
have
let's get
a special episode following up.
a very special episode.
Episode, the deck episode,
the,
because it's the 10th
the
one.
decasode.
The deck episode.
Yes,
Yeah.
the DiCaprio-sode. Anyway,
Our top 10 series that we think Leonardo DiCaprio could act in.
old boy, because he also has a baby face.
All you need is kill, because I feel like it would just piss off Tom Cruise. Like,
And it's got a really good title that I'm mad that they didn't use. All You Need Is Kill would be a good one too. We could do that with Edge of Tomorrow.
sexy. Edge of Tomorrow just sounds like Interstellar, but yeah, just
Like the title got worse as it went. It was All You Need Is Kill, then it was Live Die Repeat, which in itself is a good title. Then it was fucking Edge of Tomorrow. Like that's why nobody watched it.
it was first Groundhog Day, motherfucker. Like that's
Oh,
like,
true.
and then they have the Andy Samberg, and I'm like, oh my god! So like, you're telling me if you give a human being the ability to wake up fully well rested every 24-hour cycle, and like they could, I'm like, so you're essentially saying like, whoa, let's see how smart this guy could get within 1,000 days. I'm
What
sorry.
Andy Samberg movie is that?
the one that was on Hulu, I think. The one where
Hmm.
him and the what's her name? But it's like a Groundhog Day kind of dealio. Like they're stuck in a time loop. Stuck in
Hmm.
a time loop, have unlimited time. It's like the time loop stuff like kind of goes over my head because I'm like, so it's like a hyperbolic time chamber, except like you're complaining. Okay, like I
Yes.
just sit there. I don't know, just do I don't know. I mean, it's like resetting every day. I'm sure that sucks, but
Yeah.
oh God, if it was today, like I woke up and I saw, I was like, oh, I gotta read Oldboy again, and like I could see how that would suck. Never mind. I'm not even gonna touch it.
Yeah. I don't know. I like Old Boy. I could watch this. I could watch every version of this quite a few times.
I didn't. I enjoy every now and then, but like I feel like the shock factor lays off, and then I just kind of like the suspension of disbelief, just like, like yeah.
Mm.
I'm not big on thriller
Uh,
movies though,
yeah,
like Liam
really.
Neeson types.
What about like early David Fincher, like The Game and stuff? Like those movies were good. Seven,
I like Seven.
fuck with
Yeah.
Seven.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. If David Fincher did Old Boy, no.
Yeah,
All right.
but if
On that,
David
you David Fincher for not doing Old Boy. That would have been bad.
did you see David Fincher's most recent movie?
Uh-uh.
It was a Mank. It was on Netflix. It was about the guy who wrote Citizen Kane.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it was all right. It felt kind of sloppy for a David Fincher movie. Like I felt it was kind of loosely put together. It didn't really feel like his work.
What about Terrence Malick, Old Boy?
How much of that would be inside of the room, and how much of that would be outside of the room?
I sit here. Or no, no, that'd be Werner Herzog, where it'd be like he sits there in the room, wondering why am I here? These dumplings are like me, a fiery spirit contained in a soft shell, not knowing the outside of my regular. And then like it'd be just more like creepy Werner Herzog shit, like the rat. You'd open the rat
But
thing, and then it would be like
the
God's
the the only time that I would watch a Werner Herzog Old Boy is if it was starring Tommy Wiseau.
Tommy Wiseau, old boy. I didn't call her a whore. I didn't. Why did you lock me
Yeah.
in a room for 10 years? I don't like this. I'm going to work out now. Huff, tell me why you locked me away. Oh, hi, Jeff.
uh, it's like, did we lock him in there? No, he just went in there. Like we don't know who this guy is.
I
He's
love
free to leave.
it. Like each iteration, who's just like, oh no, I'm just here on my own. Like, cool. Like, uh,
Anyway, we have strayed way off topic. I think it's probably time for us to leave. I'm sure they're sick of us. So anyway, this has been our conversation on Old Boy. Check out both movie adaptations, but more importantly, read the manga.
yeah, just yeah, go for the manga first. And that's not enough for you, and you need incest. You got the Korean one. If you need more, go the American one.